What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode, Facility Management Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Javier. So today's episode, I'm going to teach you the 5 focuses a marketing executive should have when leading a facility management company. Okay? So I understand that there are not a lot of facility management leaders there are not a lot of marketing leaders in the facility management industry or property management industry. It's mostly operational. It's mostly like sales or finance, but they're not marketing focused. And so like you can even argue and say like, well, there are people that are like the VP of sales and marketing. That's basically the VP of sales. I'm telling you, like, that person typically doesn't have a strong marketing background. I guarantee it. Okay. And if you do have a strong marketing background, you're like literally an anomaly. Okay. That's like me saying that I've got a strong sales background, even though I haven't been focusing on doing sales for a while. Okay. So my main background is marketing. So with that, what I want to do is I kind of want to like give you the 5 key focuses that marketing executives should be following when leading a facility management company or property management company. So the first thing you want to follow is you want to make sure you create a very strong set of goals. All right. And so you're like, okay, this is kind of obvious. No, it's not obvious though, because most of these goals make no sense. Most people say like, well, the goal is to make more money. Okay, great. That's like saying that I want to win. Well, what do you want to win, Javier? I want to win. Okay. Well, what is it that you're looking to win? Win. That's what I want. I want to win. I used to work for a company where we were trying to make these kind of goals. And literally her response when I was trying to find out like a revenue goal that we were trying to achieve, she's like, we want to make more money, Javier. And I'm like, that is not a goal. That is the worst way of leading. Obviously, we all want to make more money. Okay, but we got to be specific. How much? Do we want to grow revenue by 5%? Do we want to grow revenue by $10 million? Do we want to grow revenue? And if it's like, yes, okay, let's be specific here. So what are the goals that you're trying to achieve? And so if the CEO is like, hey, in 2023, the goal for us to see growth and success is to make an extra 10% from what we made in 22. Okay, cool. So what did you make in 22? So you made 20 million. So the extra 10% would be another $2 million. So then the goal is to grow by $2 million in 2023, or 10%. All right, that's just an example. But you gotta have goals, and you gotta be very specific to the goals that you're trying to achieve. Okay, and the reason I say very specific is that when you become a general, like, well, it has to be all this, then you can't measure any of this junk. Okay. So be specific. The next piece is that you want to make sure that when you're making these goals, that they're realistic. Okay, so you got to understand that you got to make these goals and they have to be realistic. Can you actually grow by 10%? Can your property management company like literally grow by 10%? You've got the bandwidth, you've got the capacity, you've got the sales team, you've got a marketing strategy, you've got the operational bandwidth. Like, can you literally grow by 10%? Because if you can't, then why would you want to grow by 10%? If you say like, well, if we grow by 10%, that means we're going to have to hire more people and we don't have the revenue to do that. Then guess what? A 10% growth or $2 million is not a goal to achieve. Do you see what I'm saying? So like, you got to see if these goals are realistic. And the last part about this whole goal section is, do they align with revenue? So, sometimes some people might set goals that have to do with like, hey, we want to get 200 more leads this year. Okay. So how does the 200 more leads lead up to revenue? Oh, that's going to make us $5 million. Because I can get you 200 leads tomorrow if you want. I mean, I can run an ad really fast and I can get you 200 leads. And I mean, maybe it won't be by tomorrow, but I'll get you 200 leads. I don't know if they're going to be good quality, but I'll get you 200 leads. Do you see what I'm trying to get to? So 200 leads does not necessarily mean that's going to equal more revenue. So we need to quantify this correctly, and we need to make sure it actually aligns with revenue. So you as that marketing leader, you should be making sure that your goals align with revenue. I'm telling you this right now, as a CMO right now for a technology company, I'm trying to get as close as possible to revenue. Everything I do like, yes, we measure all these other metrics. Like we pay attention to like open rates and click-through rates and like, you know, ad performances and all this other stuff. Like we pay attention to all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, revenue, it's like, all right, all these efforts, what did it lead in revenue? Okay. How did this lower our CAC? How did this improve our ROAS? Do you see what I'm saying? So this is where I want you guys to understand is that like, you need to make sure your goals align with revenue, because if they don't, these marketing goals aren't going to be good and you will be kicked out of that high level position that you should be in. So this is one of the key focuses that a marketing leader should have, or marketing executive should have in a facility management space, is have goals. Okay. You know, what are they? They got to be realistic, and do they line up with revenue? You want to be as tied as close as possible to revenue, and do not tell me that marketing can't influence revenue. It can, and it should. Okay. All right. Number 2, you need to have a strategy to achieve that goal. So what's the strategy? What's the lever to achieve that goal? So going back to our hypothesis, if you wanted to grow by $2 million, 10%, what is the strategy that you're going to be using to grow by 10%? Are you going to say like, hey, we're just going to run ads? Okay. Where are we running the ads? On Google, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, on LinkedIn? And you're like, well, no, Javier, they're not there. Okay, well, let's be specific. So as I ask you for a specific goal, I'm going to be asking you for specific strategy as well too. So what strategies will help move the needle on these goals, okay, or on this goal? So maybe it's like, hey, we're going to be doing more. We're going to try paid acquisition. Okay, cool. What channel are we going to try paid acquisition? Well, we're going to try it on Google, because there's a lot of search terms that we have opportunities that we can go after. Excellent. Now we're going to focus on a region, and we're going to go after the entire United States. Because if you only offer services in a region, then guess what? Then you should be only focusing your services in a region or in a state. If you offer services across the US, then guess what? Then you need to be a little bit more strategic, because you can literally waste a shit ton of money running ads across the United States and it not work. Okay? So like, you see where I'm getting to? And if you're like, well, I want to run ads on LinkedIn, excellent. Do you know that LinkedIn is going to be more cost prohibitive, because a cost per lead on LinkedIn is going to be much more than a cost than on say like Facebook or on Google? And if you tell me, well, Javier, our buyers are not on Facebook. Really? Because Facebook has over 2 billion users. You're telling me that no facility manager is ever on Facebook. Like they grew up underneath a rock and live life there. That's not true. They probably are on Facebook. You just don't know how to find them yet. Okay? So you got to just figure out what channels or strategies are you going to use. Is conferences going to be a strategy? Excellent. So how many conferences are you going to go to? What is the amount of money you'll be spending to go to these conferences? How many leads do you expect to get out of these conferences? Okay, and then from there, what is the follow-up process? Like, do you see what I'm trying to get to here? So find out which strategies you're going to be using as your levers to help you achieve the goal above. Okay, and then what tools or pieces are needed to implement the strategy. So if you're going to be using, say, like lead generation, like on Google, then you probably need like a CRM. Okay, because if you're getting a lot of leads, all right, then you're gonna have to manage these leads as well too. And so what this means is that you're gonna have to send out automated emails. You're gonna have to give like call tasks to your sales team. They're gonna have to like start tracking these conversations. Like that's a tool that you would probably need. Or if you're gonna be running ads on Google and you don't know how to run ads, then guess what? You're gonna probably have to hire an agency to do that. Okay, and that's okay if you hire an agency, because that means that you don't have to have someone on staff to train them and hope that they can figure it out. All you do is you hire an agency, you give them a budget, you tell them what you're going after, they test out some different ads for the first 2 or 3 months, they get their feet wet, and then they start creating great ads that start generating you leads. It's pretty simple. Okay, so that's the next piece there, is that you got to figure out what tools or pieces are needed to implement the strategy. If you want to do like email marketing as one of your strategies, excellent. So what email what email delivery service are you using? Are you using MailChimp? Are you using HubSpot? So do you see what I'm trying to get to? So like these are the things that you got to start asking yourself, because these things will move will move the needle, but more importantly, like these tools are going to help things make more efficient. And then, is this strategy a foundational piece for future growth or immediate growth? So example would be is like, hey, one of our strategies to help us hit the 2 million is going to be doing a lot of demand gen. So we're going to be doing podcasting. Great. That's a great strategy. I like that approach. How we're going to do podcasting is going to be like this, and this. However, we're not going to be tracking a ton of revenue from this right now. What we're trying to do is establish ourselves as a market leader in this specific topic. I think that's brilliant. So we are just going to basically use this as a 12-month thing that we're building up for it. We're bringing in and creating demand for our company because we're interviewing key people that we'd love to do business with, but we're talking about other things, and then they learn about us. Okay. And then we're sharing this content to other key people that we want them to know about us. And they're like, oh, cool. So-and-so was interviewed. That's really nice. I should listen to that podcast. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that they did that. That's really cool. I want to be a guest on that podcast, or I'm going to contact them because they do this, and this, and that was going to help solve our problems because Joe Smith was a guest on that podcast. He must trust them. You see what's happening there? So that could be a foundational piece, but that's not going to be an immediate thing. It's not going to make immediate growth. An immediate growth could be like running ads on Google. Why? Because I can just start generating leads instantaneously. That can be an immediate thing. So you might have to figure out the balance, be like, all right, we're going to do 3 things. One of them is going to be immediate, so we're going to be running like lead gen. One of them is going to be long-term, so we're going to start a podcast. And one of them is just going to be like, just kind of putting ourselves as like the industry leader. And we're just going to be basically doing like blogging or social media posting or something like that. You see what I'm saying? And so you have a strategy behind those things. All right. Number 3 is how to execute the strategy. And so execution is probably the most underrated thing out of all in marketing. So, and this is difficult because a lot of times, CEOs are like, okay, you've done all this work and this is all great. What's the results? And all that work never would have worked out if it wasn't properly executed. I've seen, even in my company, I've literally seen things die because of poor execution. Okay, we launched something, I'm not gonna tell you what it is, and it wasn't done well, and it was poorly executed from all facets, not just from marketing, but from everybody. It was poorly done, and we got no results out of it. And it's because we're trying to get results out of it immediately, and that shit doesn't work. Okay, so you got to understand how to execute, and you got to understand that, hey, if we're going to execute this strategy, there are going to be some things that are going to be learning curves. Like, we're going to have to sit here and take a few beatings until we figure it out. But we're going to execute by doing this, this, and this. This is the game plan of how it's going to be launched. Okay? And so you got to have a strong execution strategy. So if you're going to be launching a PPC campaign on Google, excellent. How are we going to execute upon that? This is what we're going to do. We're going to hire an agency. And then that agency, we're going to pay them $2,000 per month to manage just, PPC ads. And we're going to spend $5,000 a month on lead generation. And they're going to be putting together ads going after this audience. And these are the keywords that we're going after. And they're going to manage that. And over the next 3 months, we're going to see how many leads that we get. And we're going to kind of measure the growth of those leads and if they actually close. Now that is an execution where you can simply say, hey, this worked, or hey, this did not work. Let's pivot. Or let's just completely change strategy. Do you see what I'm saying? So execution is such an underrated thing in all of marketing. People just think like, well, just put an ad out there. If it was that easy, trust me, everyone would be doing ads. And you might be thinking, well, everyone is doing ads. No, not everybody is. So this is, so how you execute is key. And then, you got to evaluate your team. You got to see who can actually execute certain pieces. So like on our team, I've got a director of marketing, and he's good at doing certain things. So I make sure he takes on roles that are around that. Okay. And then there's other pieces that he's not as versed in. So I either take on those roles or I give it out to an agency. And so we continue that whole thing because what that does, it allows us, in essence, to kind of have, almost like people that own certain elements. So like in our company, we have an agency that does our PPC ads and Facebook ads. So they execute that for us, okay? So I'll tell them certain strategic direction that I'm looking for or how to improve, and then they'll start executing upon those things, all right? The other thing that you want to do as far as the execution piece is position your people to be successful. So if you know they are really good at certain things, don't make them responsible for something else, okay? And it's really critical that you don't do that, because then you'll set them up to fail. Because then it never gets executed correctly. And if there's pieces that you're like, well, Javier, I'm not really versed in this, then hire it out or you figure it out and you own it, okay? Because there are things that I'm not super versed in, but I figure it out and I own it, and then it's my responsibility, okay? And then, like the last thing, I've already said this, but execution is the most important part of this entire, the strategy that I'm kind of giving you here, all right? All right, number 4 is understanding the tactics and how each of these tactics are going to help basically make your strategies work. And these tactics are going to make the strategies work and make you grow revenue or hit your goal, okay? So there are different tactics that need to be used, upon your strategies, okay? So once you've laid out the strategy, the channels that you're going after, what you're going to be doing, and then how you're going to execute upon that strategy, then you got to lay out the actual tactics on how to do that, okay? And so I kind of got into that a little bit earlier about if we're going to be doing, podcasting, we're going to be doing it like this, or if we're going to be doing PPC ads on Google, it's going to be going like this, and we're going to spend this much, and we're going to hire. These are the tactics. These are elements of it, okay? So understand that each tactic is just simply a lever that will influence the strategy. So you want to get that really, really well. Okay, so if you have a strategy of hey, we're going after paid search, excellent. What's the tactic there? We're going to be doing PPC ads. We're hiring an agency. We're going to pay them $2,000 and we're going to budget $5,000 per month for the next 6 months. Perfect. That is a strategy that you can use in the tactic. And then these are the keywords that we're going to go after, and these are the keywords we're going to be measuring, and this is how many leads that we're anticipating to get. Do you see what's going on now? Now all of a sudden, you're getting closer and closer to revenue. You're putting yourself in that position, okay? So understand that each tactic is a lever that will influence the strategy. And so you don't need to know how to do each tactic. I can tell you right now, I know how to run PPC ads. I've done them before. I know how to run Facebook ads. I've done them before. Do I want to do them? Not really. Is my time well spent in that area? Fuck no. Okay? I'm better spent in other areas. I can optimize SEO strategies like nobody's business. I can write copy like nobody's business. I can do email strategy and other things and overarching strategy like nobody's business. There are things that I'm really, really good at, and there's things that I know how to do, but I don't want to do them. So you don't have to know how to do every single one of them. You just have to understand how to do them so that you can ask better questions and you can give direction on how that tactic is being executed. Okay, does that make sense? And then the last piece on this, understanding the tactics, is that you got to see if you want to use a team within your company or an agency, okay, to launch each of these tactics. And there's nothing wrong with hiring agencies, guys. It's okay to use an agency to do different things. All right. And so the last part is this, the number 5 is how to properly measure the success of the strategy. So this is how you measure it. You're going to have to basically fucking make up new metrics. You're going to have to be all right, I expect us to get 30% or 300 leads using this channel. And you're telling me that you just make up numbers? Yes and no. So when I first came on board, we didn't have any metrics that we were tracking whatsoever. And I was all right, first quarter and a half, I'm going to be measuring everything. And then we're going to start finding what metrics that we need to measure that will actually move the needle. And that was good for our team because we're a startup. And then quarter 3, we basically took what we learned from quarters 1 and 2. And we started saying, okay, if we increase this should get us this. If we increase this should get us this. You see what's going on here? And this starts helping us as a company to make better decisions. And this is what you want as a company as well too. So once you understand like how to measure the success of these strategies, you basically are going to put numbers tied to this. So like you might want to have one quarter where you're just kind of like doing everything and you're getting data, and then the second quarter or the next quarter is going to be the same thing that you just did in the previous quarter, but now you're measuring against it. So you're going to say, okay, we're going to increase this. We just learned this. That's okay, as long as the CEO and the executive team all agrees with this. If they don't, then don't do it. Okay, so to properly measure success, like this past quarter for quarter 3, like we started shifting more budget towards Facebook ads. But I said like, hey, if we shift budget towards Facebook ads, we should be seeing an increase of 37% growth in new leads, which is from this to get into this. And if we see that should lead to XYZ more revenue. And guess what? Right now, it's doing it. And you're like, well, now you're getting to the point where it's just like you put dollars into this thing and then you know what you're gonna be getting. Yes and no. And so we're doing this with different other things as well too. We're doing this with CAC, customer acquisition cost. All right. So we're measuring CAC and we're getting more specific and more smart about how we measure CAC. And now we know that, hey, in this channel, our CAC is this. In this channel, our CAC is this. And you see what I'm saying? And so the same thing with ROAS, our return on ad spend. This campaign is giving us this much, this many leads, but it's giving us a higher return on ad spend because customers are closing and it's less phone calls from our sales team to certain people. So like these are things that we start measuring a lot more, and we start putting goals on them because we know that it moves the needle for the overall revenue on the top. Okay. So end of day, I just want to make this very clear. End of day, the CMO or the VP of marketing for any kind of facility or property management company, you guys got to tie yourself as close as possible to revenue. All right. And I know there's not a lot of CMOs in this space. And that's unfortunate, or a lot of VPs of marketing in this space, and it sucks. All right. And the ones that do have them, they're like in a SaaS company or a CMMS company. And that's cool. But if you're working to be in that position, if you're like a marketing manager or a marketing coordinator, by all means, like find out how you can get as close as possible to revenue. Because if you can do that, game changer for you. Your career will start going on a different trajectory. Okay, so end of day, CMO and facilitating. End of day, as a CMO, your main job is facilitating this entire thing and making sure everything's properly executed. All right, that's like when I can't stress this enough. You as a CMO, you're getting paid not just for you to do it, you're getting paid for the strategy, the execution of the strategy, setting up the goals, pivoting, taking ownership, the direction, motivating the team, giving them, vision, all these things. You are in charge of all that. So you need to facilitate it and you need to make sure it's properly executed. And then you go in there and you help out where you need to be. Okay, so that's kind of how a CMO, in my eyes, and that's what I've been going through. And now, does that mean that you should be going into the trenches and working? No. Because some companies might only have 2 or 3 marketing people, and the CMO probably is going to be like CMO of 1 plus 2 people. And so you're going to have to get in the trenches in there and work too, buddy. So that's nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm in the trenches all day long, but I'm working on specific things. Okay. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right. So those are the 5 things that you should focus on as a marketing executive in the facility or property management space. And if you found that valuable, I ask you to do 3 things. First, give us a 5-star review on either on either Spotify or Apple Podcasts. 2, connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me on linkedin.com/in/Javier Lozano Jr. And number 3, share this podcast with somebody else on, either with a DM or a text message. Other than that, have a wonderful day.